They whisper it in corridors, behind jeweled doors, beneath chandeliers dripping with history. How could Fazza love her woman with silver strands, and 60 winters behind her name? But they don't know the truth. They do not know that age means nothing when a soul recognizes its home. They do not know that beauty is not measured in youth, but in depth, and her depth was endless. She wasn't loud, she wasn't desperate, she wasn't trying to win him. Yet she did. Not with perfection, but with presence. Not with beauty, but with a story. Not with youth, but with wisdom cut by sorrow, shaped by endurance, and softened by grace. When she spoke, the world quieted, not because she demanded attention, but because every word felt like truth carved from experience. She did not chase him. She did not dream of royalty. She did not imagine his love, and perhaps that is why she received it. He saw in her what the world never bothered to look for: a woman who survived storms without losing her tenderness, a heart that had known endings yet still believed in beginnings, a soul that had been broken but refused to turn cold. People call it scandal, people call it shocking, people call it impossible, but he calls it destiny, because sometimes love does not care about age, titles, rules, or expectations. Sometimes love chooses the impossible just to prove that it was always stronger than the world's opinion. And somewhere, behind royal silence and guarded gates, he looks at her the way poets look at sunsets, not because of how long it will last, but because of how rare it is. When the world discovered her name, the halls of royalty trembled. They didn't ask about her heart, they asked about her age. They didn't ask about her soul, they questioned her worth. They didn't see love, they saw scandal. A 60-year-old woman and a prince known for grace, power, and the eyes of a poet. How could such a story exist? But fate has never cared for rules. She did not approach him with beauty meant to impress. She offered no diamonds, no fame, no youthful charm. Yet, when she spoke, his silence answered. When she looked away, his heart leaned closer. When she tried to disappear, destiny refused to let her vanish. She was everything the world forgot to treasure: soft wisdom, quiet dignity, and a tenderness earned through pain. People wondered what spell she cast. But love has no spells, only truth. He loved her because she understood the language that most never learn, the language of souls, not appearances. She comforted parts of him no one knew existed. She touched wounds he hid behind status and silence. She gave him what the world never could: peace. And when they called him foolish, he only smiled, a smile heavy with certainty, and said softly, "Hearts don't age, only bodies do. One day, the world will forget the scandal, but history will remember the love, the rare kind, the whispered kind, the kind that proves." When their story first reached the public, the world reacted with disbelief. Not because love was rare, but because love like theirs didn't fit the stories people expected. A prince with youth, fame, strength, and a future carved in gold, and a woman who carried 60 years of heartbreak, lessons, and silent wisdom. People laughed, people judged, people whispered, but he knew something they did not: love is not a negotiation, a checklist, or a trophy. Love is recognition. Love is remembrance. Love is a soul remembering another soul from a place before time. She never tried to become royalty. She never tried to impress him. She simply lived her life quietly, with grace, dignity, and scars that she never hid, because they were proof she survived. He did not fall for her face. He fell for the way her silence held more truth than most people's words. He fell for the way she carried pain gently, as if even sorrow deserved respect. When she spoke, he listened, not because she demanded it, but because every sentence she breathed was woven with wisdom, humility, and soul. She didn't remind him of the world, she reminded him of peace. In a palace full of shimmering perfection, she was the rarest thing, authentic. And when the world mocked him, waiting for him to give up, to return to someone younger, someone expected, someone approved, he chose differently. He chose loyalty over opinion. He chose truth over image. He chose her. Because love doesn't ask the world for permission. It arrives, unexpected, unapologetic, undeniable, and the brave accept it. Years from now, when people speak of this story, they won't remember the criticism. They won't remember the rumors. They won't remember the shock. They will remember the ending. A prince who followed his heart, and a woman who never thought she would be loved like royalty, yet became the only queen his soul ever bowed to. When their connection became known, the world didn't react with celebration. It reacted with confusion. Plea weren't prepared for a love story that defied logic, rules, tradition, and the expectations built around royalty. AY expected a princess, young, flawless, chosen from noble lineage, someone whose image fit perfectly into photographs, headlines, and fairy tales that the public could easily digest. But fate never promised the world a predictable story. Instead, destiny wrote a chapter with a woman who had lived more years than most could count without judgment. A woman whose wrinkles were symbols of wisdom, not age. A woman whose heart carried history, not insecurity. She didn't chase him. She didn't try to shine. She merely existed with quiet dignity. Yet he noticed her, not because everyone else did, but because no one else did. He saw the softness in her eyes, the kind that comes from surviving storms meant to destroy her. He heard the unspoken pain in her silence, not the silence of indifference, but the silence of someone who had loved deeply and lost painfully. He realized she didn't need him, and that was exactly why his soul was drawn to hers. She didn't ask to be chosen. She didn't expect love to return to her life. She believed her story was already written, and love belonged to her past, not her future. But destiny doesn't knock, it enters. So, when he stood before her, not as a prince, but as a man broken, longing, searching their souls, recognized one another, like a memory they had forgotten, but never truly lost.